We've heard a lot. We've heard two things from House Democrats since the election. The first is that committees that are frustrated with this administration and its handling of a wide variety of policy areas might drag more administration officials up to come testify. Are you worried about that sort of thing affecting your ability to do technology policy work? For instance, the FCC chairman being brought consistently to Capitol Hill.
From a technology point of view, all the things that I mentioned, no, I don't think they are high on the list of likely. And again, when I look at things like modernising government technology, we have had broad bipartisan support. The Modernising Government Technology Act, I think, was unanimously passed. So I don't see that as really being frustrated by.
Sure. The other thing that we've heard, and particularly from Democrat Nancy Pelosi, who could soon become Speaker of the House, is a new conversation around infrastructure. And we all joke about Infrastructure Week sometimes, but are we looking at a potential new Infrastructure Week in 2019? Gail, Michael?
So I wouldn't want to get too far ahead of the internal planning, but I know that we've had a conversation, the old economy infrastructure piece, but also, of course, broadband is a very important piece of infrastructure, and I like to sit around the NEC staff table and remind people of that. And so we would, if there was an infrastructure conversation to be had, expect broadband to be fully part of that process.
So there's an openness, Michael?
I think Gail covered it, yeah. Broadband's a big part of the agenda.
That being said, folks have talked for a long time that the only way you're going to fix the country's broadband woes is if you spend a whole lot of money. I think at times we've heard the $2 billion figure floated from Democrats when they say that's the only way you can really, truly improve internet access in the country's hardest to reach rural areas. Without maybe commenting on that number in particular, is there a willingness of the White House to spend that kind of money on something like broadband next year?
We already spend more than that. When you look at the total of what we spend through the FCC and directly, we spend something like $5 or $6 billion a year already. So if it's $2 billion is the bogey, then we're more than that already. So spending that in the most effective fashion is incredibly important, but having a regulatory environment that promotes private sector to spend is also incredibly important. And then you get into areas like, which are related, like the Opportunity Zone part of the Tax Act, which promotes investment into underdeveloped, poor areas. So when you think of rural broadband as the moniker, but when you think about broadband, you should think about broadband in the context of people who are not wealthy enough necessarily to do it themselves. So it's not just rural, it's urban areas which are underdeveloped as well. So things like the Opportunity Zone part of the Tax Act promotes investment in those areas. Power.
Sure, if I'm reading the tea leaves, it sounds like maybe no new additional $2 billion of federal spending. You guys think you can do it with what you have?
Well, I think that spending what we do effectively is incredibly important, and that's been part of the focus of the last year. Whether there is more money allocated as a result of a bigger infrastructure deal or not, we'll deal with that when it is. But we spend a lot of money already on broadband development as a country.
And to add to Chris's point about IT modernization, like, let's play a long game. Let's play a bipartisan long game here. The same applies with rural broadband, to your question, Tony. We're not going to solve it overnight, but we can make a start at good policy, getting good policies in place that create incentives for the private sector to invest and get that next tranche online.
And promoting innovative new ways of getting broadband too. It's not just necessarily the old style of broadband that's going to be the solution to it. So thinking about new ways of delivering broadband to sparsely populated areas has clearly got to be an interesting area.
Sure.